Welcome to a new weekly program here on Horford Media, where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on Horford Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to Horford Media. Also, do subscribe to Horford Media Group's second channel, known as Horford TV, where you can find exclusive programs such as Behind the Scenes and Mahahri Saleh, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider Horford Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's kick off in East Africa, where we begin in Somalia, where armed local residents and Galmudug state of Somalia security forces, alongside the National Army, killed 70 Al-Shabaab militants in the town of Bahdo, in the Galgaduud region. The militants conducted an early morning attack on the town last Friday, only to be repulsed by local security forces. State media showcased the remains of at least 20 militant fighters that were among the attackers slain during the battle. Speaking to state media, the governor of the Bahdo region, Mohammed Abdullahi Musa, said that there were foreign fighters among the corps of Al-Shabaab ranks that were slain during the battle. In a statement following the offensive, the Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud commended residents and Somali local forces that repulsed the attack, stating that this showcased the resilience of the Somali people. Somalia has been at war with Al-Shabaab for over a decade, and the war continues as Somali forces continue to liberate more areas in southern Somalia. Moving on to neighboring Ethiopia, investigations into the possible crimes committed during the Tigray War continue as the state-appointed Ethiopian Human Rights Commission released a statement concluding that a video circulating on social media showed government security forces carrying out at least 30 extrajudicial killings in December 2021. The video, which has been widely circulated since Friday, showed a large group of men wearing army combat uniforms forcing a smaller group of men off trucks parked on a rural roadside and shooting them. The assailants then continued to fire on the motionless bodies to confirm their deaths. In a statement, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission stated that government security forces shot and killed at least 30 people, saying they were members of the OLF Shine group. And the Human Rights Commission cited conversations with witnesses. Now, in a request for a statement, Ethiopia government spokespeople, the army spokesperson, and the Amhara Regional Administration spokesperson did not immediately respond to requests for comments. The war against the Tigray TPLF in Ethiopia has been going on for over a year, which has saw thousands of Ethiopians and over 100,000 Ethiopians not just lose their lives, but their livelihoods. Now over to Kenya, Deputy President William Ruto is facing a rebellion from his allies in the Kenyan Kwanza as the fight to control counties and assemblies in the Kenyan elections heats up. The opposition leaders Moses Kuria and William Kabogo, who are members of Mr. Ruto's coalition, have decided to boycott the UDA rallies. The Service Party of Kenya leader and Farmers Parties of Kenya leader yesterday also called for crisis talks in the coalition after accusing UDA of undermining leaders from the region. The fight to win seats in Kenya is being fueled by agreements in the Kenya Kwanza, which stipulated that the positions in government will be shared based on the number of seats won by individual parties if the outfit wins the August polls. The clause in the agreement, which was deposited by the registrar of the political parties, ties the fortunes of small parties to the number of seats in the Senate, National Assembly, and the Council of Governors, and county assemblies. However, the clause does not apply to the big three, the UDA, ANC, and Ford Kenya. The ramifications of this is that small outfits have to work extra hard to reap from the spoils of the vote, a situation that is causing friction. Political pundits in Kenya argue that the clause remains a real test for them in August polls on whether they can put up a spirited battle to beat the big wigs. This is because a win or a loss by any of the parties could either make or break them, depending on how well or badly they perform in the upcoming elections. The elections are heating up as the polls are only a few months away, with Kenya expecting to hold the presidential elections in August of this year. Now, moving on from East Africa towards the Sahel region and West Africa, the French army confirms that it had killed close to 40 militants in an airstrike near the border of Niger and Burkina Faso on the 14th of June. This comes after an attack by militants against Niger troops earlier this month. And upon the request of Niger authorities, French forces used air surveillance to track down a column of 40 motorcycles, a statement said following the airstrike. This comes one day after armed terrorists killed at least 100 civilians in a rural district of northern Burkina Faso. The attackers targeted men but appeared to spare women and children, according to witnesses. Now, no group immediately claimed responsibility, but the assault happened in the borderlands where Al-Qaeda and ISIS militants linked continue to wage war and insurgency. In April, Niger lawmakers passed a law allowing the deployment of more French and European special forces and army units to help stem a jihadist insurgency across the Sahel region. This has been rejected by some political parties in Niger that oppose Western influence in the region. Now, about 2,400 French troops and 900 special forces of the French-led Takuba force are expected to leave Mali in the coming months due to the deteriorating relationship between France and the new Malian government. ISIL-affiliated fighters, whose power was once bought or thought to be waning in the Sahel, have expanded their reach recently, marking their presence with an unprecedented series of attacks against civilians. 6 months ago, the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara appeared to be in a weakened position after losing several leaders, including its founder Adnan Abu Walid al-Sahrawi. Now, the militants are thought to be expanding across the Sahel region, including Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Now, authorities in Burkina Faso are alleged to control only 60% of the country, and the remaining territories outside the state control, according to a mediator from the Economic Community of West African States. Mahmoudou Issoufou, a former president of Niger and appointed by the 15-nation regional bloc as a mediator to Burkina Faso, made the claim on Saturday after talks with military government officials on the country's timetable for return to democratic rule. Now, lastly, if we look at Rwanda government. Now, if we move on to Rwanda and the UK asylum row, the Rwanda government brands comments made by the UK press and officials as frankly insulting as the UK asylum row continues. The Kigali government seeks to shift the narrative with managed tours of processing facilities and accommodations for asylum seekers that are being sent from the United Kingdom. Now, government officials in Rwanda are now accusing campaigners in the UK of prejudice, saying the country's record of human rights breaches is a thing of the past. Those who are trying to stop us from addressing this crisis, which is causing untold suffering, without offering their own bold solutions, are effectively saying they're happy with the status quo, said Yolande Makolo, the spokesperson for the Paul Kagame's government. This week, reporters were granted access to Gashora Transit Center, which is used for processing asylum seekers evacuated from Libya. The crisis and the row continues in the United Kingdom and Rwanda. Now, staying in Rwanda, 2 people were killed and 6 were injured when suspected militants opened fire on a bus in southwestern Rwanda, according to Rwandan police. Saturday's attack, which killed the bus driver and the passenger, was carried out by the National Liberation Front, or FLN, the armed wing of the anti-government Movement for Democratic Change, or MRCD, the police said in a statement. Armed thugs suspected to be remnants of FLN operated from across the border shot at a public passenger bus, the Rwanda National Police said in a statement on Saturday. Now, moving on to Congo and staying in East Africa, Congo accepts an East African coalition of armies from countries across East Africa to support the fight against rebels, but rejects Rwandan troops' participation. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo has welcomed Kenya's proposal to deploy a regional force to fight M23 rebel group in the east of the country, but has said it won't accept neighboring Rwanda's participation. Military chiefs from 7 East African countries are meeting in Nairobi today to discuss the rising tensions between the 2 neighboring countries. It is the latest escalation in a row between Rwanda and Congo, which have a decades-long history of fraught ties and have recently seen sporadic clashes on their border regions. Kinshasa accuses Kigali of backing the rebels. Rwanda denies DRC's allegations that it has sent troops into the eastern DRC or that it supports the M23 rebels, whose leadership hails from the Tutsi ethnic group, the same ethnic group that the Rwanda president Paul Kagame hails from. On Friday, DRC closed its border to Rwanda after Congolese soldier was shot dead while attacking border guards inside Rwandan territory. 2 Rwandan police officers were injured when the Congolese soldier crossed the border and opened fire before an officer on duty fired back and killed him 25 meters inside Rwanda, the Rwandan military said in a statement. The M23 is the latest in a series of ethnic Tutsi-led rebel groups to rise up against the DRC forces, claiming to defend Tutsi interests against ethnic Hutu armed groups. Now lastly, over in North Africa, uproar in Tunisia as hundreds of people demonstrated in Tunis today on the second day of protest against the constitutional reform called by President Kais Saied that his opponents say would cement his hold on power and return Tunisia to single-man rule. The demonstrations was organized by the Salvation Front, a coalition including the moderate Islamist Ennahda, the largest party in parliament that Saied dissolved in March. It followed a similar protest on Saturday called by the Free Constitutional Party over the referendum, and a strike on Thursday by a powerful labor union over government economic reform plans which brought much of the country to a standstill. On July 25th last year, Saied sacked the government and suspended parliament, which he later dissolved in moves that sparked fears for the only democracy to have emerged from the Arab Spring uprisings. He laid out plans for a referendum to take place next month on a replacement for a 2014 constitution that had enshrined a mixed parliamentary presidential system, often plagued, however, by deadlock and nepotism. Saied also fired 57 judges on the 1st of June, accusing them of corruption and protecting terrorists in a purge of the judiciary. The move just came after he only appointed 3 of the 7 members of the Independent High Authority for Elections Electoral Commission, including its president. However, while many accused the president of Saied of a coup, he denies this, saying his intervention was legal and necessary to save Tunisia from years of political paralysis and economic stagnation at the hands of a corrupt, self-serving elite who had taken control of the government. Meanwhile, Tunisia's economy and public finances are in a crisis as the government is in talks with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, for a rescue package amid widespread poverty and hardship. President Saied's replacement of the Judicial Council that guaranteed judges' independence, as well as the replacement of the Independent Electoral Commission with his own appointments, has casted doubts on the integrity of both the legal process and the election in Tunisia. Now that's all the top stories this week on the program. Tune in next week for another weekly update of events across the African continent.